All right, everybody, welcome into Concrete Jungle, a New York baseball podcast here on FairLakes1.com. I am Paul Russo, joined as always by Kyle Evans across from me. Kyle, it's been a week. It's been a positive week.
Yeah.
What do we say?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. But we'll recap it all. It's weird. It was another case of. All right, to be fair, there is news, right? But it's been mostly a quiet-ish week of stuff, but plenty to get to, plenty to debate. Kyle, how was your Memorial Day weekend? Pretty good, I would assume, overall, right?
Yeah, and the weather has been fantastic. I've been outside quite a bit lately. I know it's going to continue to be nice around here. So yeah, it's been a pretty good week, I would say.
Definitely. So we'll jump into everything with that. But first, some podcast business. Thank our sponsors, Dr. Jeffrey Halstead, DMD. Dr. Jeffrey Halstead has been Canada's hometown dentist for more than 35 years, offering routine dental care as well as cosmetic dentistry, implants, and dentures by their highly trained and experienced staff. You can visit them online at CanadaDentistry.com or find them on Facebook and Instagram today. And Lincoln Hill Farms. You can head out to Lincoln Hill Farms in Canada for family fun with live music, good eats, cold brews, and a great time for Father's Day on Sunday, June 18th from 1 to 8 p.m. Save the date. Bring your dad, uncle, grandfather, any father figure in your life for one-of-a-kind entertainment experience at Lincoln Hill Farms. Come out, enjoy great food, live music, long games, enter their Dress Like Your Dad contest, and have a good old time at the farm. For more information, go online at LincolnHillFarms.com. Luckily, I think for me, Kyle, I'm the one up because I prefer to wear New Balance for mostly everything now. So I'm in the right direction there.
Nike isn't too bad either.
Fair. Yeah, I mean, I'm wearing Nikes right now, but I know for golf I have New Balance shoes. For baseball, I have New Balance cleats and turfs. So, and then I also have two pairs of the 474s. So. We're all about comfort at this point in time, I'd say, for me. But let's get right into it with the Yankees. 4-3 in the past week, so always good to come out on the net positive. They lost that final game against Baltimore, lost the series to Baltimore, come away winning the series against San Diego over the weekend, and then won the series against Seattle. So overall, positive, and in my mind, a really positive note given how we entered the month of May with the Yankees. Not quite doom and gloom, but things weren't looking great, I'd say. And then Judge comes back into the lineup, really rejuvenates it, to be honest. And we'll get to, obviously, the other injury updates and stuff like that here in just a few minutes. But, the month of May ends up becoming a really big net positive for the Yankees.
Yeah, like I said, I think, what was it, Tuesday?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they lead the league in homers this month, best record since May 2nd. And last night, it was one of those nights. I mean, they had a great opportunity in the 10th inning, but they didn't homer, so that's basically why they didn't win. Because literally, when they homer, they're like 26-4.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of wild. I know guess what time I had baseball last night up in Rochester. For those who may not know, the drive from Seneca Falls to Rochester, it's not bad, but when it's a Wednesday night, it can be
an 8 o'clock first pitch.
Oh, you're so close. 8:45. So I literally missed the whole game. We're safe. I think I missed the entire game minus literally the last two pitches, I think. So there's that for me.
Late night baseball is always fun, though.
Yeah. West Coast baseball is great. But, in the grand scheme of it, to really digest maybe the last week where it was 4-3 and maybe collectively the roughest 7 games in terms of actual record-wise for the Yankees in the month, I didn't think it was actually all that bad. Now, there were pockets where it was rough. I'm not going to deny that. But to come away with... really, to be fair, 2 series wins collectively against a Padres team that I would imagine they got to take the turn here sooner or later, else they're going to be just in trouble because they're kind of like the Yankees to me. They're a little bit too good, I think, to be that bad, I guess, the way they've collectively been playing so far this year.
And they lost again last night. Josh Hader blew a save.
Yeah, and a Seattle team that, again, has taken the turn through the month of May. Not maybe quite where they expected to be, but they've taken the turn to get back to at least on track to what they were doing last year. To me, that's a big positive. You take frankly, the 4 wins in the week were against the Padres and the Mariners. And I think, you'll get the Baltimore series, and there's just stuff in there that it's going to be interesting seeing Baltimore down the stretch here at this point. I'd say the next month and a half until we get to the All-Star break because they got the injury bug right now a little bit, right? To the point that Aaron Hicks is a Baltimore Oriole.
2 hits.
Right, well, of course. But it will be interesting. Grayson Rodriguez got sent down for them. He's been struggling.
13 runs yesterday.
Right. I mean, not a knock against, say, a Kyle Gibson, but it's bad when, like we're talking at baseball last night, it's bad when everybody's mind goes, Kyle Gibson's their ace. I'm like, I don't necessarily agree with that, but, like, I don't think they're off base with that logic. So the Yankees, to me anyway, if you want to go further back than, say, the 7 days, look at maybe 10 days, that's definitely a rougher patch because now you are looking at a 5-5 record through the past 10 days. So I would have preferred them to obviously get that rubber match against Baltimore. It didn't happen. Kyle, you were right on that one if I recall correctly. So that happens, I guess.
Yeah, but I think really last night, I get it, they won the series, but it stings because it was just 1-0. All they needed to do is at least get 1 or 2 runs to win that game, and then when you have first and third, nobody out in the 10th inning, it's like, man, you gotta score there.
And for you specifically, Kyle, you blew a Clark Schmidt game.
Yeah, definitely his best performance. I couldn't believe it. Just dominating that Seattle lineup. Made Julio Rodriguez look terrible. Threw it right down the middle to him. Had him looking. I guess all his pitches were really good last night based on some of the swings he got.
Yeah.
1.78 ERA in his last 3 starts for Clark Schmidt. But still, get him out of the rotation now.
We have some news, and this is where I think we can jump in because to me this is where the bulk of really, I guess, the Yankees stuff kind of lies, is within the injury updates and stuff like that. So we begin with, when I did the notes, and I'll toss over to you for the back end of this, right, we have Giancarlo Stanton, Josh Donaldson, and Tommy Kahnle all slated to be activated, and the way it sounds, they have been at this point for the upcoming series against the Dodgers. Giancarlo's been out since technically mid-April, I think, right? Yeah. Donaldson, just about the same time frame, and Tommy Kahnle will be making his 2023 MLB go of it here this upcoming series. All been rehabbing with whether it's been AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre or AA Somerset, as I think they all technically ended with AA, actually, now that I'm thinking about. So, but you, Kyle, have the back end news on that one, so I'll toss over to you for that.
Yeah, Franchi Cordero, who pinched hit last night in a big situation, struck out, has been sent down, as well as Oswaldo Cabrera and Matt Crook, who never appeared in a game and is still looking for his major league debut. So those are the moves. They have not made the Kahnle, Donaldson, and Stanton move official because my bet is they still haven't arrived in LA yet. So until they're physically there, they won't announce that transaction. So I would expect early afternoon tomorrow.
Yeah. It's interesting. The Yankees technically having 23 guys on the roster right now, physically there. So that's pretty interesting. I think the biggest name really for me with that's got to be Oswaldo getting sent down. And obviously there had to be an odd man out situation. And I think he was probably the safe, in terms of gameplay wise, he had to be the safe play because obviously he's got options left. But Jake Bauers, hard to kind of argue with the bet. He's been swinging for the most part lately. Obviously a big big opening night in Seattle for him, but he's tending to be a decent enough bat most nights within the Yankee lineup. I'm still kind of am wondering why Willie Calhoun's still admittedly hanging around a little bit, even though he's a Yankee legend. But yeah, it's not bashing the kid saying that Oswaldo struggled so far this year. So I don't hate the move. Kind of go there, get it figured out a little bit, and I would assume we will see him back up in the pinstripes at some point this year.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy because if you would have told me before the season that Oswaldo would have been the first one option over Greg Hallen, Willie Calhoun, and Jake Bauers,
Right.
that's wild. But he's what was he hitting 191?
Yeah.
Just really wasn't doing much offensively. Hitting a lot of ground balls. That was a big topic. Not hitting enough fly balls. Just struggling at the plate.
And not to interrupt, I think part of it too, I think has to maybe do a little bit. If he hasn't been hitting as well as he has been the past week, I don't know if they necessarily do the Oswaldo option. But the fact that IKF has really come on here the past week and had good at-bats, been a source of offense, to be quite honest. I probably would be a question of, honestly, going back to one of the guys you named, Kyle, between Bauers, Calhoun, and Greg Allen, only because I don't know if the Yankees would DFA IKF, but they'd probably be looking at that utility spot a little bit more under the microscope and kind of deciding that because, look, Oswaldo can play both outfield and infield. Obviously, IKF is learning the outfield, so it's an interesting thought, I think, to have whether or not that would have been the case had IKF not had some of the games he's had the past really week or so.
Yeah, and with Stanton coming back, I don't know. There's too many pieces right now and not really enough spots. So I think the best option was to send down the guy that's struggling at the plate. I think that was, and like you said, because of the options, I think that was the best move, and that's why they thought about it for a while. But yeah, and then losing Harrison Bader does suck.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk about that more, but
yeah, we'll circle back to that in a minute because I have a few more to get through here before we actually get to Bader. Anthony Rizzo should return to the lineup against the Dodgers, but we've kind of been hearing that that he's been available here the past couple of days, and it's been more of an emergency spot dealing with. I think it goes beyond just a stiff neck. I think maybe that shoulder did get dinged up in that back pick of Fernando Tatis over the weekend. And the interaction they had was pretty interesting. But, honestly, Kyle, you talked off air about it a little bit. Another case of, I'd say, the outside world being told one thing and maybe a little bit something different going on behind the scenes between the team and, like I said, the fan base and the media.
here's my thing. Why can't the fans be told the right information? I mean, us as fans, we pay money to go see these guys. We buy, merch and all that stuff, support them. Why can't we just be told the truth about the players with their injuries and stuff? Like, why does it have to be covered up so much? Like, to me, it's just so frustrating because I've seen it for the last, 5-6 years of Aaron Boone especially, where he just doesn't come out and tell the exact truth, and everything's so positive, even when it's really probably not. And that's kind of the case with Rizzo. Like, he told us before the game yesterday that Rizzo would be available as, like a potential pinch hitter late in the game, and then he would return to the lineup Friday. Well, then, first and third, nobody out, he pinch hits Franchi Cordero. And it's like you have Rizzo on the bench, who is a really good contact hitter and can hit with runners in scoring position, and he can't just get one at bat here.
Right.
And then he tells us after the game that it was only an emergency situation and they would have only used him if they were out of position players. Like, why say that to us and then not be serious with it? And then now, really, I don't know if he's going to be in the lineup tomorrow, the way things have gone. And if this is the case, then why not just put him on the IL for that minimum of, 10 days? Like,
Sure.
You're losing a whole bat right there.
Yeah.
And he could have already been out, or he could have already had 5 days on the IL.
Yeah. I think for me, I go back to a gripe I had, in all honesty, pre-pandemic. And like I have a lot of questions about the Yankees training and health staff. Just in general, I have for a while. Um, and that's not a knock on Donahue or any of the guys over there, but um, it's just some of these guys have the same injuries pop up over and over again. And a lot of that stuff I get. Like, you're more susceptible to have an injury in that same body part or same whatever that's been injured because it's not necessarily weaker. It's just that's life. Like, I fractured my wrist in 6th grade, right? And every now and then at certain parts of the year, it just pops up that it nags a little bit, and it is what it is. That happens. But, like, it's one of those things where, like, I kind of think back and, like, again, I feel like this might be a slightly case of Boone being kind of meat shieldy in a way, but, like, maybe he, like, when he says, like, the preliminary stuff, like, he talks with, say, in this case, Rizzo, and they're like, yeah, it'll probably just be a case of him sitting out a couple days or something like that. And, that's not the case once, whoever talks to him really comes out and says it. Now, I think this is actually a good point. I'll skip ahead a couple players here, right, to bring up Harrison Bader, right? He gets placed on the 10-day IL, but he's going to miss a few weeks with a low-grade hamstring strain that he suffered on Tuesday night, or Monday night, rather. And kind of the same thing, Boone says, like, he'll be out for a few days, but, expect him back. And then once the news comes out, it's like, okay, so, like, what's the actual truth here? And again, I just go back to, I have questions about the training staff and health staff, but, like, is there just, like, not good enough communication going on? Like, what is the deal here? It's a major league team. Not that I don't disagree with, like, at least the fans portion of it, Kyle, like, where it's like we're paying people, but I personally just don't understand, like, why is there just, like, a lack of clearly communication going on here between the training staff and the managerial staff? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then when Aaron Boone was on that Talkin' Yanks podcast, what was that, Tuesday morning,
Yeah.
he was in his hotel still, obviously, because the game was late at night, and he said that they didn't even have an MRI scheduled yet for Bader because
Right.
they couldn't, they didn't hear back from the doctor yet.
Mhm.
So it's like you had all that time, and then you still don't know if he's getting an MRI, and then you tell us that he doesn't think it's serious. Like, there's just so many, like, things that, like, Boone says that just doesn't always add up.
Right.
And it's so frustrating, like I said, as fans that, want to know the true information and, what player might be playing the night if, somebody's going to a game. And you just never know because that's the way Aaron Boone works. So, like, for all we know, Rizzo could all of a sudden land on the IL. Like, that would not surprise me tomorrow afternoon if we see Rizzo goes to the IL because of just how things are. And then they'll backdate it.
Yeah, but the thing with that, though, is I think we would have known if they're going to do that if they would have held one of those guys back from heading back to the East Coast. If that was going to be the case. That's where I'm going to admittedly disagree with you, I think, on that one, only because Oswaldo probably wouldn't have gone back. Because I think at that point, Bowers comes in and plays first, and then Oswaldo just goes play the
Yeah,
outfield.
but the thing is, like I said, they could have backdated it, which means he only would miss, like, 5 more days. So
No, but I'm just saying from the logistical standpoint, 3 guys wouldn't be heading back to the East Coast.
I don't know.
Right now,
All I'm saying is this happens way too often. It's a joke. We never know the truth. You can never believe what Aaron Boone says, and I don't know. It's frustrating.
No, I don't disagree with you there. I don't. So, kind of stuff we've already, we've talked about throughout time the past, year or so we've been doing this about Boone and really I think probably the team as a whole. But all right, back to it. In Hamilton, he has remained on the East Coast while the Yankees have headed out west. He's been thrown off the mound, though, at Double-A Somerset, kind of been hanging out with them. They're, I believe, the only team in minor league-wise home the past week or so from at least the cluster of the teams up by New York up there. Plan is to probably rest a couple more days and then do another bullpen and kind of go from there, but we are nearing a potential return for him. I know the target date's June 13th, but fact he's already kind of thrown off the mound at least, I'd say it's a pretty good positive. Catcher Jose Trevino was reinstated off the injured list, and catcher Ben Rortvedt, who I'm back to saying I don't know if is a real person, was optioned back to AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre. So some stuff there as
2,
well.
3 starts. That's it.
Give or take.
Unreal.
And then I don't know why I forgot to write it into the notes because it was a talking point I want to talk about, but Carlos Rodon traveled with the Yankees this road trip and has been throwing off a mound in Seattle during this as well, doing some sim game. They didn't call it a sim game. It's a sim game, what he was doing. There were just no batters in the box for him. So we are getting some more progression with Rodon throughout this as well. So I'd say it's a primarily positive injury report overall here, but remains to be seen. But I think it's big. Ian Hamilton clearly, I think, is going to probably hit that target date of June 13th, being back with the big league roster the way it seems.
Yeah, obviously getting Stanton back is huge, but really, I think I've kind of talked about him a lot. I'm just a big Tommy Kahnle guy, and I think a lot of people don't remember how many years ago when he was with the team and how good he was.
Trip
This guy is
Trip 1 or Trip 2?
This guy is legit.
Yeah.
His changeup, unbelievable. He's going to be a big part of this bullpen if he stays healthy, and he's just a great guy, you know, based on his interviews and stuff. And I think, you know, adding him to that bullpen really strengthens it even more. And like I said, don't be surprised if once in a while we see him in the closer's role.
Yeah.
Because he is that good.
Yeah. No, he's a gamer. He is a gamer. There's no denying that. All right, so the Yankees wrap up this mini West Coast road trip type thing. Usually the West Coast road trips have a third series, but this one only has 2, as they head to Los Angeles to take on the Dodgers for 3 games, off day today. Then LA starting tomorrow on Friday, 10:10 first pitch on Yes or MLB Network. Luis Severino against Clayton Kershaw. Saturday, 7:15 on Fox. Garrett Cole against Michael Grove. And then Sunday, 7:10 on ESPN. I believe it's the Yankees' first Sunday Night Baseball game appearance of the year, right? How about that? Eat your heart out. Domingo Germán against Bobby Miller. So, pretty big series here. Here's the thing. This might be my first ever actual true hot take to some people on this podcast. Clayton Kershaw's overrated as hell. Okay? He simply is not the player he once was. Or is. Whatever. But, I wouldn't be surprised if the only game the Yankees lost was Sunday night. And I say that only because Bobby Miller is pretty legit. If you haven't seen him pitch yet, he's the real deal. So, and Germán, I don't know with him anymore. I can never get a beat on him exactly. So, I'm gonna go with the Yankees take 2 of 3 from the Dodgers this weekend.
I'll say they win 1 of 3.
Okay. Which one do they get?
They'll get the Friday night one.
Yes, Kyle. Yes.
I'd have to go back and look, but I think the Yankees have faced Kershaw. What was it, 2019 before in LA, or some other time?
18 or 19, yeah.
And I thought, if I remember right, they did well. They hit some home runs and they won that game. I'm gonna have to go look after this podcast, but I don't know. I do agree with you there. I feel like the Yankees can hit Clayton Kershaw pretty hard, and not a lot of people expect it because of he's a Hall of Famer.
A perceived notion of him being a Hall of Famer. I stand my case. You saw what happened with Madison Bumgarner. That's what we're seeing with Clayton Kershaw potentially here.
And I know I'm negative. I said 1 of 3, but I don't know. It seems like when the Yankees take steps forward, they go backwards. So they lost to Seattle. Maybe they'll take more steps backwards.
Fair enough. I know what you're doing, but fair enough. Let's head to the Mets, where they also had 4 wins the past week, but only 2 losses. They had 1 less game. For them, they are looking to sweep the Phillies actually right now, and
The Phillies are bad right now.
And it ended up being an interesting week here for the Mets since we last spoke. Go to Colorado. Things did not look good overall there, but they've really rebounded nicely, at least with the Phillies series. Now, I do agree, but you have to play who's in front of you, right? And to me, there's a lot of positives within this. Okay, so I want to start honestly with Kodai Senga. Like the last time we talked about how he was shouldering this blame for the loss in Chicago, and he rebounds. He goes out against Philly on Tuesday night, and just probably has the performance so far of his MLB career. Just looked really great. 9 strikeouts, I think it was.
And thank Brandon Nimmo for robbing the 2-run home.
Right, but the ghost fork was in full effect, and I don't want to look. We bang this drum a ton on here, but it's hard not to ignore the impact of these young guys, and specifically at this point, Francisco Alvarez, because he really is putting the Mets now in this. I don't think it's a tough spot, but it's the perceived tough spot of where they're going to do here when Alvarez comes back here, because that's going to be sooner than later at this point, within the next coming days, and we'll get to that in a few minutes as well. But look, Alvarez finally is now getting moved up in the order. He's just lighting up the ball. The pitching staff loves throwing to him. Like, what just, I would not, it's like one of those things where it's like, what a find, but like, what a job by him where he could have been starting the year in such a mental, like, strong box at AAA because he got sent down there as opposed to where he probably should have been starting the year at the big league roster. Started off great at AAA, rocky start when he got called up, but now finding the stride and finding the pace and making him a, to me, everyday major league catcher.
Yeah, he wasn't. I don't think we would have thought that when he first came up. You know, he had his struggles, but then, man, he settled in nicely, and like you said, he's won this team a lot of games. If it wasn't for some of his big home runs, the Mets probably would be in a worse spot right now. And for me, though, it's easy to make room for Narvaez. I mean, Tomas Nido's got to go.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's been a good defensive catcher for the Mets, but I mean, Omar Narvaez just is a better all-around player. And it's
They're good at Guillorme him, aren't they?
Yeah. So to me, that's just the move they should make. And I don't know. There's been a lot of catching movement though with this team. I mean, Gary Sanchez, Michael Perez. I mean, a lot of movement there.
Yeah, and it will be interesting here too. I don't. It's weird because like outside of I'd say stuff with Alvarez, there hasn't been like an exact ton of traction with the young guys at the moment. But here are Alvarez's stats for May, and we'll kind of end it with him on this. 292. He's slashing 292, 363, and 667 with 7 home runs. If you want to get into the really deep analytics stuff that, personally speaking, I enjoy going down on my own time, and I know for a lot of people it may not be great, but whatever. 197 WRC plus. That's 8th in the MLB. A 375 ISO, that's 5th in the MLB, and a 1.3 FWAR, tied for 9th in the MLB for the month of May. That's huge for a rookie catcher that he's doing this. And to me, no way that he can not be in that lineup anymore. It's funny too because they just announced the lineup here against the Phillies for the matinee sweep game potentially here, and now it's taking a while for it to load up for me, but
there's one guy missing in that lineup. Last I checked, it was Mark Vientos.
Yeah,
but Alvarez was in there.
It's interesting. Alvarez was batting 9th today. They're having him do the whip around spot, which is interesting, but I don't know.
We got to talk about it again.
Yeah,
quickly.
I think we got to do it. Because now it's just in front of us. However, Brett Beatty's batting 5th today, so I don't know.
Again, I'm going to keep saying it. It's repetitive. How the hell is Daniel Vogelbach still on this team?
Yeah, Here's the thing. Vogelbach, and I don't want to jump ahead because it's in the notes for the Syracuse Mets. I don't think he's going to be on the big league roster, but it's pretty interesting to me. All of a sudden, Tyler White has signed a minor league deal and has joined the Syracuse Mets.
And how
Yankee fans will be more familiar with Tyler White, but he's effectively the right-hand version of Vogelbach. So that's pretty interesting to me that all of a sudden he's now within the Mets system.
And how do you keep starting Vogelbach?
Yeah,
Fine,
I don't know.
keep on the roster, but how do you keep giving him starts every single day?
To be fair, in the lineup today, the way lineups are structured now, he is in the hide spot. He's in the 7th spot in the lineup. So
He's your DH, your power guy.
yeah,
And he has 2 home runs.
yeah.
2.
He's in the spot where he's sandwiched in between Starlin Marte, who has come on pretty decently here the past week or so, and Marcana, who same type of deal, been doing pretty good. What's interesting is I'm also looking at the trending thing on Twitter right now, is Vientos is the top trend, at least for my market here, and the top tweet, and I agree with this guy who tweeted it, if the Mets are going to refuse to give Mark Vientos a proper amount of playing time, to send him down. Yeah, I mean, I at this point, I do agree with that, but he should be up, and he should be playing. I do not get why. It's not even so much, I think, the Vogelbach thing. I think you can just find people to throw in the DH spot to just do it at that point. I don't mean to single the Vogelbach guy out specifically just for Mark Vientos, but you gotta find a way to get Vientos in the lineup. And if you aren't gonna play him, just send him down.
I wish more teams would operate like the Braves do with their prospects. They trust them. They let them play. They play guys that are actually helping them win. They don't just base it off, how much they're paying a guy.
Mm-hmm.
They're there to win games, and they throw out the best players. And I wish more teams would operate like that. And if I was a Met fan, I would be so frustrated with the amount of times that Vientos is sitting, Beatty's sitting. Alvarez used to be sitting quite a bit, but now since he's hitting more, he's in the lineup. But yeah, I don't know. I don't get how Vogelbach is still in this lineup.
Yeah.
And Buck Showalter continues to back him up. Yeah, I get it. He's on your team. He's your player. You're gonna back him up. But how? You can admit that he's struggling, and at least say that he needs some time off, and not keep throwing him in the lineup.
Well, if that's the case, he's a young guy who has options. Just send him down then. Send him down so he can just get that work. Because you clearly know he's hitting well enough at AAA. He's gonna hit well enough still.
And like I said recently, I think if I remember correctly, he's making 1.5 or 1.3 million dollars. It's not a huge loss.
No. That's the part that was surprising with the Gary DFA at the end of the day, was just I don't know. But that's why I think, I don't know, I go back to the saying that we're here and other people are elsewhere and blah blah blah. I don't know. I do want to talk a little bit here about Francisco Lindor, because he's had a good stretch of games here again, but he ends up making headlines last night. Makes a great defensive play, and of all people freaking out, the Phillies broadcast freaked out about, he flipped they called it a flip. It was a soft throw, but I'll go ahead and be that guy. If one of the fastest players in the league, and Bryson Stott's trotting down the line, I'm probably not going to make an exact hard throw over either, because if he's not busting hump, then I know I'm not going to have to rush a throw and probably get an error. And of all people, the Phillies broadcast, which features John Kruk, who was part of some Phillies teams that were the most showboat for their time, team on the planet, loud wrong. Just loud wrong. And frankly, to be fair, I didn't think it was necessarily a soft throw on purpose. I think he was trying to make sure he was under control enough that he knew at least the ball was going to be in the vicinity for Pete Alonso to get. You know what I mean? And I found it funny that they were making this gripe about it on the Phillies broadcast, when, frankly, if you were going to gripe about something, it should have been Stott trotting down the line.
Why is it always these older announcers, these
don't
former players?
Yeah.
We're in 2023. I mean, the game has changed, as we always talk about. And it's why, complain about something like that? I mean, I get it. You're playing a miserable stretch of baseball. What was the team he, calls games for, the Phillies, is playing miserable stretch. So I guess it's okay to be frustrated, but to, complain about that. I mean, let's just get over it at this point.
It shouldn't even be an issue, but like it gained traction online overnight because people were just calling him out because it's like it's not his fault that your guy's not doing what he needs to do in the first place. And I go back to this a lot. Like I distinctly remember, and it's a little bit different, I think, maybe for me than you, Kyle. Just because at the time I was in college in Western Pennsylvania, and so like I had, Cleveland broadcasts in my market, so I was able to watch them at the same time. Like I was able to watch Pittsburgh, and I remember when Lindor got brought up, and it was such like a ray of sunshine. Like, and there's a reason why he's called Mr. Smile. Like he's literally just like this ray of sunshine playing wise, and like first and foremost, to me it's always great to see him play good because like he's the guy you want to root for in a way. And oh look, the official news. I have my phone finally about the Yankees, but like of all people to go after, like Lindor's not one of them. Like he's a guy who's always playing hard. He's human. We all have our moments where like that happens, but like for him to act like he was like showboating on a lob throw to me is just like absurd. It's just absurd to me. Like he was one of these first ones, I think, outside of say like your Bryce Harpers, who like people hated for a while because he was doing like the smash mouth stuff. Like Lindor doesn't necessarily do the smash mouth stuff, but like he has the flair, he has the pizzazz. And by the way, I go back to this a lot. I think it's just the cultural thing. Like that's the way he was brought up playing in Puerto Rico. That's the way he plays. Like that's in his blood. Like, and far be it from me or you or whoever is around to tell him how to play. And that's why I think, we're bashing him, but that's where I think a guy like Buck Showalter is great, is because over time he has accepted that and has like moved on from judging people in such a way. Like he was not a Ricky Henderson guy for a while, and then he got around Ricky Henderson and was like, okay, I get it now. And like since then he's become that's why players love playing for Buck, is like he allows them to do what they want to do. He doesn't stop them from being them. And now I'm going down a completely different path from what it really was, but just again, to me it's like one of those things where it's like if that's one of your biggest headlines, I'd say you're having a pretty good week.
Yeah, it's a little different when Wander Franco did whatever he did a month ago when he kind of tossed it to himself. But like
even then, though, I didn't care.
But like, I don't care either. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, I guess it was a little different because I guess he maybe showboated a little more than what Lindor did. But I don't know. I just think who cares? Like, let these guys play. And notice that a lot of these guys that are doing it are younger. They're not 38, 40 years old. They're younger because the game is different.
Yeah.
And people, I don't know if anyone will ever, like, understand that, like, the game is different. Let the kids play. Let them do what they want to do. And, yeah, just move on.
I get into this all the time, and I think maybe to end the conversation on this, like, I get into this all the time with different people. Like, if you want the game to die when you die, like, fine. But, like, I'm not going to allow for it.
Like the bat flips, there should be no problem with bat flips.
Yeah. And I understand, like, maybe where it's like, if you're down by, like, 8 or whatever, maybe you shouldn't be. Like, I can maybe understand, like, partially of that. But, like, as I've always said, like, if I were to ever hit a home run, like, I'd probably, like, taking off my clothes and, like, run around the base. Like, I don't know what I'd do. But, like,
Showalter said it well. If you don't want to see somebody bat flip against you, don't give up a home run. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Be better.
I always go back to Madison Bumgarner, who was the gatekeeper of all this crap for no reason. And, like, I remember one time he got mad at, I can't remember, it was a guy who I think only played, like, maybe a year or two because he shows right. And he was playing for, I want to say, was it Texas? Yeah. No, the Dodgers. It was the Dodgers. It was during the peak of that, like, really hatred stuff going on. But he, like, popped up and got mad at himself and, like, kind of, like, threw the bat down because he was mad at himself. And, like, Bumgarner was freaking out on him. And, like, What are you doing? He's pissed off at himself. He doesn't need your crazy ass barking at him for no reason.
Here's some quick Mets news.
Go ahead.
From Buck Showalter. The Mets are considering starting Kodai Senga on 4 days rest this Sunday.
Yeah. That I was going to talk about that here in a second. So let's rattle through some injury news updates for the Mets. Starter Jose Catana will be throwing a live batting practice session on June 5th. Been slowly building back up since he had that cartilage injury in his ribs from spring training, so that's a good sign there. Mentioned Navarez already a little bit. I won't touch too much on that, but he should be activated on time on June 5th from the injured list. Now, a name that we haven't mentioned a ton on here, but right-hander Alicia Hernandez has began a rehab assignment with Single A St. Lucie. Why would we mention him? Good question to everybody from me to you. This was a guy, high-end Marlins prospect, only really went like a year with them at the big league level, but has a ton of options left. So the Mets took a flyer on him when he was DFA'd by the Marlins. Has yet to pitch, honestly, with obviously anything high-end with the Mets. It's even sounding like when he gets activated from the injured list, he'll probably just be at AAA Syracuse as a stash piece for now. But it's a name to keep in mind moving forward. He's a very good young pitcher. I think he just needs, honestly, time to get those reps in. And then right-hander Jimmy Yacobonis was designated for assignment when he was activated off the IL a few days ago. Wouldn't be surprised if he went through the process and we see him at Syracuse in the coming days. So not as lengthy as the Yankees, the Mets injury update, but that's because they have a ton of guys back already, and the guys that are coming back are finally picking up the process.
Yeah, yeah, I've said it all along. The Mets really haven't had a ton of injuries, especially to their offense. They've pretty much been a whole team the entire, well, it's only been 2 months, but for the season so far, where the Yankees, their lineup is dealt with injuries. Mm-hmm. That's why I always said that, I think the Mets, will eventually figure it out. They're not missing too many pieces like the Yankees were. Now the Yankees are getting their pieces back, and they're rolling. I still believe the Mets will get going. Yeah. It's only 2 games above 500, but with what they have, there's no way they sit around 500 the entire year. So that's just kind of what I think.
Yeah, I mean, and you want to look at from the standing perspective of it. They've bit into a couple games on the Braves for the past week. They're 2 games above 500, tied for second in the NL East as the Marlins. Talk about them a little bit again here, but they were just hanging on still and playing good baseball. But the Mets, to me, I'm with you. The Mets are just in a good spot. Stuff is going to work out. They kind of got the wind in the sails again a little bit after a few weeks of being down on them. So I'm with you. I can't imagine a way that they don't kind of pick this up at this point. So.
And right now they're on an 84-win pace. But like I said, they're not going to keep hovering around 500. So like I've said all along, I think they can win 90 games. Right now they're on an 84-win pace. Just play a little bit better baseball, and you already have 90 wins.
Yeah. Well, speaking of wins, they look to sweep the Phillies today. That's at 1:10, so that's coming up here in pretty much an hour and a half from when we're talking right now on SNY. Taijuan Walker against Max Scherzer. We'll start there before I jump into the Blue Jays stuff. I think they get the sweep, to be honest with you. I think Scherzer has really taken the turn the past couple starts here, kind of showing the stuff of old for him. So I'm going with the Mets today to get the sweep against the Phillies.
I'm gonna say the Phillies take this one. It seems like whenever they're in position to sweep, they don't. It's an afternoon game. Taijuan Walker against his former team. Just seems like Taijuan Walker will have his best start of the year today.
Revenge, okay. Interesting. I'm with it. All right, the Blue Jays then come to Citi Field for 3 games this weekend. Tomorrow, 7:10, Friday, first pitch on SNY. Chris Bassett against Justin Verlander. Saturday, 4:10 on SNY. Jose Barrios against Tyler Maygill. Sunday, 1:40 on SNY or MLB Network. Yusei Kikuchi against TBA. That's where I was going to pick up that conversation, Kyle, was the fact that I've seen, obviously, you brought up Senga on short rest. That also could be The thing with that, though, that's interesting is I don't think it technically would be short rest for Senga, though, because it'd be 5 days.
Buck said 4. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the part that's kind of mind-blowing. So I don't know. I think they get 2 or 3 from the Blue Jays. I'm sure they'll trip up one of those games, but you want to talk about a team that, frankly, has not performed well enough on the mound as of late. That's Toronto. And I think against a lineup that's got at least some pieces really clicking on all cylinders and firing all cylinders, I think the Mets get 2 or 3 against them. I want to say sweep though, man. Like Toronto is doing nothing for me right now. They just aren't. Yeah, I'll change it. I'll do it. I'll say the Mets sweep Toronto.
Yeah, I mean that would be nice for the Yankees'
As well,
sake.
correct. Yeah.
I could see a sweep too. Honestly, the Blue Jays, like you said, have not done anything in their offense too.
And this is a subject I don't want to go really far down because it would. I just don't have the time for it. But you want to talk about a clubhouse in turmoil at the moment? Toronto's got that in full effect right now.
Yep. I say I'll just say 2 of 3 though, but I could see a sweep. I think Maygill is gonna Maygill or however you say his name is gonna hurt them on Saturday.
See, it's one of those things for me where it's like that's just having not knowing who you have set yet for that last game is like concerning to me, but it's whatever. All right, before we get out of here, let's spend a couple minutes talking about Rochester and Syracuse. Rochester is literally the hottest team in AAA baseball right now. 5-1 in the last week. They went from the last time we spoke last Thursday, 18th in the International League standings, to tied for 13th. And we talk about the way it's structured this year, doing the split seasons. They are getting hot at the right time, to be completely honest. Obviously, they're going to be out of the first half race. But we're coming up on the end of the first half already, at the end of this month in June, and they're a really good team. You look at the vibes that they kind of have right now, and I look at after they won on a walk-off on Monday against Syracuse on Memorial Day, Matt Adams, who is this veteran, he's trying to get back to the MLB, but this big smile on his face, he's happy to be in Rochester. He's just enjoying his time and playing good baseball at the same token. I don't want to make that seem like the undercard on this, but I think I go back to stuff like this. I think having a presence like that for young guys, say like Darren Baker, who's doing obviously still really good, and say like your Jacob Lou's out there and stuff like that, and your Jeter Downs, that's huge. That's just big. At the end of the day, that's big. And unfortunately, you look at the opposite direction. Syracuse 1 for 5 in their last week. I went to that game last Thursday.
Extra innings.
And they've lost a few now in extra innings in the course of this thing again. And it's interesting because you look at the expected record for the Mets right now, the S-Mets, it's actually 23-30, whereas for the Rochester, they're actually like at like 20-30. So like they're stuff like as we say, like in the trenches where it's just something that's making a difference. And it's interesting too for Syracuse. I wouldn't say they're outright playing bad baseball. Like you look at, some of the starts, like Joey Lucchesi obviously is down there and he's pitching well, but just stuff is not clicking at the right time in certain spots, and it will be interesting. Kind of already mentioned there has been a ton of roster movement with Rochester, but Syracuse, mentioned them. Tyler White joined them the past couple of days. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what impact, if at all, he kind of creates. He'll obviously kind of fill that DH first base role that it was interesting. Nick Meyer was playing first a lot the past week while Michael Perez did catching. And then I know, like that game I saw on Thursday, they pinch ran for Perez and Nick Meyer ended up going behind the plate in like the 9th inning. So clearly they're trying to mess around with some roster construction here in Syracuse, but you hope for the sake of the S-Mets, they kind of get it figured out here sooner than later because, like I mentioned, like they haven't shown any good progress signs here recently to make me sound like they have a shot in the second half this portion of the season, where I do feel like Rochester does have a legitimate shot in the second half to make some noise at the top of the International League standings.
Yeah, it's to me it's crazy. I think last week, what were they, like 8, 9 games under 500, the Red Wings, and now by the end of the week, if they win out, they could be over 500, which is certainly possible with the way the Syracuse Mets have played. So it's quite the turnaround for a team that has struggled the last few years. I mean, that big losing streak last
19
season,
straight, yeah.
like just ups and downs with this team. So it's nice to see them on the winning side.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I mean it's minor league baseball, so it's always tough to kind of get a true gauge every now and then. But it's one of those things where you look at Rochester, and like the only guy who's really left them was Kevin Pawlecki, and outside of traditional roster movements, it's been the same team all year there, and they're figuring it out. And for Syracuse, not as much in that same space, but at this point now the core's kind of been there, and they're just kind of stuck, as I call it, in purgatory almost for the time being. So be interesting to kind of see how the next week kind of plays out a little bit. I know Syracuse returns home next week for them. I think I'm going back to NBT Bank Stadium on Tuesday night next week for a game, so it'll be interesting. But we'll update that for Monday's podcast. So appreciate everybody for tuning in. Like I already mentioned, we'll be back Monday. If you can't watch live, YouTube, catch up there, Spotify, stuff like that. Kyle, you got a big-ish weekend ahead for you. I know the summer collegiate baseball leagues open up, so you'll be hitting anything in person this weekend or watching from afar?
Yeah, I'm not sure about this weekend, but usually when I don't have anything to do, I take the 3-minute drive up the road and watch some baseball for free because I get in free. So,
yeah.
Yep. So it's usually, just a good time to watch local baseball. I mean, it's only college, but it's still better than just sitting home doing nothing.
For sure. Plus, a lot of good historic venues in Newark and Geneva anyway, locally to us. And then Auburn has a MLB said it wasn't a playable facility, but I'd say installing new turf right before you left and making clubhouse improvements even before that, joke's on them. So,
Yep.
Yeah, plenty of baseball here locally to get your hands on here in Central New York and the Finger Lakes. So take advantage of it, people, especially, you mentioned it off the top, though, Kyle. The weather's been too nice lately not to take advantage. So,
Yep.
All right, so we'll talk with everybody on Monday. Until then, enjoy the weekend, enjoy some baseball, and we'll talk with everybody then.
Go Heat.